Okay, so this is going to be a video on how to use a pour-over to make coffee. I almost got my water heated up here. I've got pretty much everything ready to go. I'm going to have to grind my coffee here in a moment. For those of you who are just stumbling upon this video, who are kind of wondering about all the rest of this, what have I got going on with this fancy electric tea kettle? What's this crazy grinder doing here? What's up with that coffee in the background in the red bag? What are these things? I've kind of touched on that in my first video and my second one, annotating both of them, right up here, like right there. I'll let you sort of take a look at those if you have more questions. I've explained briefly in each of them, why you would want an electric tea kettle. I explained why you want to grind your coffee as opposed to, just buy it already ground, and why you might, if you're willing to pay the extra money, you might want to go with a burr grinder as opposed to one of those ones with the blades that rotate around. And now I'm going to talk about what these are. So these are called a pour-over. They're very, very simple in design. The idea is there's a hole in the bottom. Basically, you take your filter, right? This one is conical in shape, okay? It is a perfect triangle, if I can get it open here. And you just set the filter down in there, like so. And you put your coffee grounds in there and set this right on top of your cup. And you brew your coffee. Really, it's extremely similar to what a coffee maker is doing. Any of you who have operated a coffee maker, if you own one, if you've made coffee at the office or whatever, the concept is the same, and the difference is just that you are doing it manually, so you have a lot more control over the outcome. Normally a coffee maker has, filter. You put the filter in. It might be like this. Probably more likely it looks like this, or it may even be one of those ones that have like the little ribs. They have a flat bottom, you know what I mean, as opposed to sort of coming, to a point like this one does. But the point, in those is exactly the same idea. You put a filter in, right? You put coffee down in that. Then you usually close the lid, and the coffee maker pours water on top of it, and it drips down. Unfortunately, coffee makers aren't very discerning about how they pour the water over the coffee, or how long they take to do it, or how hot the water is. And these are all problems that lead to subpar results. It might taste fine. It might taste pretty good. But you can really get more out of your coffee with one of these. And the beautiful thing is these are very cheap. In my video, the last video I just did on French presses, you should know usually a French press will run you somewhere from around 20 to 30 US dollars. These are about the same. They run in that same ballpark. I think I got this Bon Mac one. I think I got, you can see there the Bon Mac. I think I got for 15 bucks. I think I got this one for a little bit more because these are kind of in demand. A lot of coffee shops have these, or buying them, and they're a little bit hard to find. But the point of the matter is the same. They're very affordable. There's no need to pay $60 or $70 for a high-end coffee maker from someone like Cuisinart when you can buy one of these and make better coffee. The problem with those is they don't allow for control of the water temperature. Okay, so you can't play around with that. They don't control how the water is distributed over the grounds, okay? And they don't control the brew time, in other words, how long the water is in contact with the grounds. All of this leads to mediocrity. Well, that's fine. If you're rushed and you don't have a lot of interest in coffee, who cares? But if you really want to get into coffee, if you want to, if you've just bought a really nice coffee, like this, you want to get the most out of it, okay? These are traditionally more expensive than something you're getting off a store shelf like Maxwell House or Folgers. You want to get your money's worth, okay? So I'm going to walk you through the steps of how to make coffee in one of these. And it's the same if you do it in here, but this one is just a little bit, honestly, it's more simple. You don't have to baby as much. And the reason you don't have to baby it much really has to do with this hole in the bottom. You can see here the hole is very small. This one has a large hole, and coffee can come out quickly, and it can brew quickly, and if you're not on top of your game, it can be bad. So the first thing you're going to do, like with the other video I showed you, I'm just going to set that down in there a little bit, and I'm going to take my water that I've got up to temperature, I'm just going to sort of wet my filter here. And this is going to do two things. First of all, it washes out any paper taste that you'll get from the filter. The second thing it helps do is, helps the filter fit in there better. And the third thing it helps do is preheat your cup. Okay, so remember in my French press video, if you saw it, I talked about how some people preheat their French press. They'll put in water ahead of time to get it up to temperature. That way, you know, the drastic change in temperature doesn't have any effect on the brew. Alright, so they get their French press heated. It's the same idea here, okay? We're going to kind of preheat this. A lot of times I would maybe rinse out the filter a little bit more. I might set this on top of just some random cup. And I might just sort of, you know, get any spots I missed. Just really try and make sure I do get all that paper taste out. But generally, you know, you don't have to do too much with it. And what I really do recommend is sort of a required step that you rinse this filter out. And if you don't think the paper taste will matter, here's a challenge to you. Put a paper filter in there, just pour water through it, then wait for that water to cool down and drink it, and tell me there's not a paper taste. Okay, there is. Trust me. You don't want that in your coffee. You don't. So preheat your cup. Set this right on top of it. And the next thing you're going to want to worry about is grinding. Okay, so for my French press video, you'll notice I had the grind pretty coarse. We can go a bit finer on this, and I usually like to go somewhere right in the middle, personally, closer to the fine side. I'm just going to grind this, and get right back with you in a second. So, almost done grinding, and as you can see here, I've got my grounds coming out. That should be enough. I talked about this in my French press video, but the rule of thumb is 2 tablespoons for every 6 fluid ounces. Again, that's imperial for those of you working on the metric system. My apologies, but 2 tablespoons for every 6 fluid ounces. Some people actually weigh it out, and they'll go by grams. So, like, I think the rule of thumb is like 0.56 grams for every 2 fluid ounces. I might be completely off on that. We got this brewed. I have my cup preheating. I'm gonna go ahead now, just sort of shake it, get it even there. I'm gonna measure out, since I'm doing a 12-ounce cup here. I'm going to measure out 4 tablespoons of this. I'm just going to put it in there. I'll be right back. Literally just scooped out 4 tablespoons and put it in there. You'll see it. It's sort of down here in the bottom. Just give this a shake. Kind of get it evenly distributed here. You don't want sort of like a big lump of coffee in any one place. Sort of get it all even. Lighting's not very good, but I can tell you it's pretty good. The distribution is pretty on point. I'm going to set this aside for just a moment. I will take my hot water, I will get rid of it, and set this back on here. Hang on just a second. Yeah. What you're going to see is pretty much a technique that I'm having to... let me just put it to you this way. This is not the best vessel for doing this. Unfortunately, it's the best I have to work with right now. So again, I'm going to measure out 12 ounces, which is 350 milliliters for those in the metric system. Alright. That's pretty good. And again, proper temperature should be around 200 degrees to 205 Fahrenheit. For those of you that don't have a thermometer built into your electric tea kettle, which I'm guessing is most of you, just give it about 45 seconds after it comes off of a boil. Okay, once your tea kettle comes off of a boil, give it 45 seconds or so. You should be right around that temperature. I'm going to take this, and the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to, what they say is open up the coffee. Okay, so I'm just going to pour a little bit over, just a little bit, just a little bit. Sort of open up that coffee, let that CO2 start releasing. You'll see that there's all these bubbles here, and what you're kind of seeing is the release of carbon dioxide, okay? And you can't really see it. Unfortunately, I'm using a glass that is not see-through. But a little bit of coffee is leaking through. Very little, not very much.